Hello friends of Canadian Cutting Edge. Today we're going to look at a unique knife by Sanrenmu. This is the 7046. Yeah, look at that blade shape. If you're curious to know more about this knife, stick around. We're going to do a full review on the whole thing, and we'll move the camera to the tabletop perspective and take a good look at the Sanrenmu 7046. All right, we're looking at the 7046 by Sanrenmu. Let's do a little size comparison. This is the 7010 by Sanrenmu. The angle of the camera and the perspective might not be the best, but as you can see, very much the same size. It's obviously thicker in the handle, but the length of the blade and the length of the handle and everything, very much the same. So it's roughly that size knife. I wear a large glove and I can get a good 4-finger grip on this, and my thumb can sit on top of this thumb pad. That's what I'll call it. It's not a disc for sure. And you can do an awful lot of hard work with this, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first talk about some of the specs on this knife. What we have is a knife that has a cutting edge of 2 1/4 inches along this flat bottom area. And then what you see is, let's do it over here so it's more accurate, you can see it better. There's about 1/2 inch on that longer edge, and it is sharp on this leading edge up here as well, and that's a little less than 1/4 inch long. And the knife blade from handle to the tip of the blade is 2 and a little over 5/8. So if you're in a jurisdiction where you're allowed to have knives shorter than 3 inches, as long as you're also allowed to be having a locking knife, this knife is definitely within that category. But this is a special knife created by an actual designer, not just some in-house staff guy at Sanrenmu. This is a Liang Gang design. Sanrenmu's high-end knives, Real Steel, that brand, they've used Liang Gang to design a lot of their knives. So he's a designer, a Chinese designer who knows what he's doing. He's done some pretty good work. And when he did this, I think he just let himself go wild with making what I'm calling the ultimate box cutter. Yes, I'm calling this ultimate. It's a box cutter that just really, really works. If you have a job where you're working in shipping and receiving, or you're stocking shelves, almost any kind of job where you're opening a lot of boxes, this knife will do that task for you. I've done a lot of work when it's locked open and just playing with cutting and stuff. Because once you start cutting with this knife, it gets kind of addictive and you just enjoy cutting and cutting and cutting. And you just want to keep cutting all day long. This knife just does that perfect job on everything from cardboard to, the kind of the paper board that you have like on a Kleenex box or a cereal box or, a tissue box, whatever. All the way down to any kind of light paper and whatever. This is the ultimate knife for that kind of cutting. And the blade profile is the main thing to thank for that. So what we have here for a grind is we've got a grind that comes down, a flat grind on both sides. And then the final cutting edge is a chisel grind. So it's only ground down on this edge that way, and there's no grind at all, final grind on this side. Anywhere on this long edge or on the other edges either. So everywhere there's an edge, it's all chisel ground, which means if you're a guy who has this kind of job where you're doing a lot of cutting and whatever, and you are just terrible at sharpening a knife, you've got no problems with this. All you need to do is buy yourself a flat stone. I don't have one handy. It's like -5 degrees Celsius today, so I'm not going to go out to my garage and get mine. But if this was a sharpening stone, you can just hold it and, put oil or water on your stone and just this motion like that. Just putting it flat. You got a nice big long surface there, just a flat going back and forth. and you're going to get a good edge. And on the other part, just, that's all it's going to take to sharpen this knife. It's the perfect knife for a guy who can't sharpen very well. If you can sharpen well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a chisel grind. It's just that it's also very handy for anybody else. Let's do a little bit of cutting before we get further ahead of ourselves. This is just some plain paper. Let's cut with the edge up here. No problem at all, whichever edge you want to cut with. It's just addictive just to keep cutting and cutting and cutting. Here I've got some thick wire, and it's easy to cut pieces off that way, no problem at all. This is from a Xbox controller. It's just easy to cut with a chisel grind, no problem at all. And see what I was cutting through? Like, this is a lot of material to cut through, and it does it no problem at all. You've got other kind of banding or whatever to cut. There's no problem cutting that kind of stuff. It just slides through anything you want to cut, no problem at all. It is the ultimate box cutter. But it's more than the ultimate box cutter. Let's talk about everything else we got. Let's talk about the handle. We've got this minor jimping here at the front, right for your thumb. A little bit of jimping back here for the meat of the palm of your hand when you're holding it. A little bit of jimping for the liner lock release. The liner lock locks up at almost 50%, and that's a perfect lock up. There's no blade play up or down, back and forth. I've done nothing to adjust this, but there's no problem to adjust it because it's got a Torx screw everywhere it's Torx. So there's no problems there. You've got a really nice tubular lanyard hole. You've got this back spacer coming back in here, and in the back spacer there is a glass breaker. And let's come up nice and close. And you've got the glass breaker that's got, you can clearly see it in this light that there's that tungsten tip on there. Very, very hard, very solid, and you can break glass very easily with that. You've got blade centering that is perfect. It's an optical illusion because this swedge that they put across the top here to get this other cutting angle. See, there's nothing on this side, it's just flat. And then you've got that swedge. That's why it looks like it's not centered, but it is centered, and it's centered perfectly. These holes that you have right here in the end of the handle here, if you put anything through there, and then you go and close the blade, it's going to get cut. So that's just cosmetic down here. I would have been happier without it. So the handle feels really nice. You've got some holes in here to lighten the weight of the knife and to give it some character. You can get them in this gray. You can get them in sort of a grass color green. And you can get it where it's this kind of gray, but the liners are kind of a bright bronze, sort of gold-ish kind of color. So the handle is really nice. And then you've got this. This is a metric nut driver system, 4, 6, 8, and 10 millimeters. And here I've got a piece of wood with a, that's a 8 millimeter nut. And it's really easy to just get your handle on there. And you don't even have to look at it. And you can just tighten away. It works quite well. The first time I saw this style of driver on these little tools, these little flat wallet type tools and whatever, I thought that they wouldn't work very well at all. This one works very well, and it's in large part because of how thick this piece of steel is. This steel goes, it's not quite 1/8 of an inch thick coming down into the handle, but it's the thickness of the liner here. The scale and the liner, that's how thick the two together is, over 1/8 of an inch. So you do have some meat that it can grab onto. Well, it's metal, not meat. And that driver works very well. Now let's talk about the clip. It's a very typical clip that we've seen a lot of times with Sanrenmu. Very functional. Now let's talk about the clip. The clip is very functional. It's a very deep carry clip. It's got good strength to it. It slides in and out of the pocket with just the perfect amount of tension that you want. The the knife sticks out of the pocket just a little bit if you've got it in a tip down orientation, but you have the option to move it and change it to the tip up orientation on the right side, but then you've got more of the knife sticking out of the pocket, less width of the knife, but more sticking up. So it's your choice which way you want to put it on, but it's right side only for the pocket clips because they put this nut driver in here. I would have been very satisfied without the nut driver and having the 4-way options to put this clip on. That would have been cool. I would have also liked this clip to be closer to the edge, same as this one, if they would have just moved this towards this edge a little bit and higher, so it's beside that lanyard hole. That would have been, better. So there's a little room for improvement there. The steel on this knife is 8CR 13 MOV. So that's, a very adequate entry-level steel. It also helps that beginner sharpener to be able to sharpen this because the steel will hold an edge fairly well, and it's not hard at all to get a new edge onto it. You can buy this at a lot of different places online. I bought mine at GearBest because GearBest simply is the best price for Sanrenmu gear. So overall, summarizing, here's this knife. What do I think? I think it's perfect for anybody that works, stocking shelves at a grocery store, or like I said, a shipper receiver, or the list could go on and on and on, where you need a nice, solid, small, out-of-the-way knife, something that doesn't look murdery at all. It's not going to scare the public. This is a knife that I enjoy having, and I EDC it every once in a while. As my secondary carry, I like to have a big knife on me too. If you're looking for a knife that'll do the kinds of jobs that this knife excels at, consider this. It's money well spent, even if you just buy it to see and experiment with. $11.66, that's US dollars, is not bad at all. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please click on like, click on share if you know somebody who had used a knife like this instead of just, a simple box cutter all the time. This is much more elegant, and I think it works a whole lot better. I just like this knife. I like it a lot. Please put your comments, your questions, your ideas for how you would use this knife. If you think it's worth buying or not, let me know. I'm quite interested. And thanks for stopping by. Thank you very much for subscribing. This has been a Sanrenmu knife. My name is Jake. You've been watching Canadian Cutting Edge. Always cut towards your chum and not your thumb. Bye now.